Sup? What is going on with Need for Speed at the moment? That's actually a really good question. I didn't really cover this news on this channel before, but basically the TLDR is that currently the team that was supposed to be responsible for the Need for Speed series, now Criterion Games, is currently full-on working on Battlefield 6. And I think in general, like, Battlefield 6 is the one game that EA has its eggs in the basket in. So that is where 100% of the investment is currently going in. So there isn't really as much time or money left, I guess, for EA to make another Need for Speed. EA does still have Codemasters as a studio that could work on a Need for Speed. And I do think that in the future, it's probably going to be, like, Need for Speed games are going to be a collaboration between Criterion and Codemasters, if I had to take a guess. But currently, it seems like even Codemasters was kind of like cut down as a studio and pretty much condemned to just be a Formula 1 studio now, occasionally helping out on other sports-related titles, which honestly could not be a worse fate for Codemasters, and makes me feel quite bad about them. But yeah, this is kind of where things stand at the moment when it comes to racing games at EA, which obviously understandably makes you think that there's like a complete standstill at the moment when it comes to racing games, and that obviously also applies to Need for Speed. However, that does not mean that there's nothing Need for Speed related currently going on, because as it turns out, there is a Need for Speed title that released after Unbound that is still currently, as we speak, getting regular updates. You just can't play it. And the reason why you can't play it is because, as some of you might expect, or maybe already know, it is exclusive to China. It is a Chinese exclusive mobile game. Now, this is not the first time that EA has tried to kind of like get their feet wet into the Chinese market with Need for Speed. They have previously tried it with this game, Need for Speed Edge, which I assume some of you don't actually know about. But this actually released in, I think, 2014. It does say 2017 there, probably because it still got updated. But this released in 2014 and was kind of like a reskin of Need for Speed Rivals, and was supposed to be, yeah, an MMO pretty much. So if you have played Need for Speed World back in the day, or maybe played Need for Speed World after it got revived by the community, it kind of sits in that same ballpark. Now, what you're seeing here is actually a revival of Need for Speed Edge through a project called Verge. Project Verge is a community effort to not only bring this game back, because it was actually shut down, I think, in 2017 even, and also never got brought into any other markets other than China. So Project Verge actually attempts to bring this game back and make it accessible for the rest of the world. And as you can see, the entire game is also translated into English. I just want to say this is super cool and something I probably want to check out at some point myself. All things considered, this game does look decent. I assume they were probably like massive paywalls pretty much everywhere, as this does seem like the prime target for like a super pay-to-win MMO game. However, all things considered, this does seem like a fun reskin of Need for Speed Rivals. Like, you can see that there's like much more car variety here, so you have like a Skyline in the background or a Cobra Daytona there in the bottom right. So it seems like a cool car list, if I'm being honest. They expanded on some of the customization that Rivals had, so obviously for Speed Rivals kind of like somewhat brought back customization into the series with like very basic livery and color customization. And it seems like with this game they actually did expand on it a little bit more. Now, I don't think you can do like crazy body kits on this like in like the more tuner focused Need for Speed games, but it was like some kind of expansion at least. And honestly, gameplay wise, it looks decent. Like, I gotta be honest, like, I enjoyed Need for Speed Rivals for what it was. It definitely had its issues. And this seems like a more polished up version of the game, if I had to guess. It doesn't strike me like there are any like super abundant changes with the gameplay structure in of itself. So it looks quite fun, honestly, and I think it's a shame that this got taken down and was pretty much only ever Chinese exclusive. Now, once again, I think the mobile game, or like, I don't want to say like the mobile game structure, but the pay-to-win aspects that were more than likely present in this game would have probably made me hesitant to play this long-term. But yeah, it seemed like a cool game. It's, you know, PC exclusive title, just like an overall expansion on Need for Speed Rivals. So yeah, this is kind of where things stood for a while, and it turns out that now EA is trying their luck again with kind of getting into the Chinese market, so to say. So the new Need for Speed game that is exclusive to China, as I said earlier, is a mobile game. And a lot of people refer to this as Need for Speed Mobile. It is actually called Need for Speed Assemble. At least that's if you translate the Chinese title into English. And it is... It is like... It is a fever dream, okay? It is like the most insane fever dream I have ever seen. And I think all I need to show you is this. I don't think there is a single soul on Earth that would believe me that what they're looking at is a Need for Speed game. What is this, dude? Like, I'm not kidding. I'm not trolling you guys. This is not a clickbait video. This is genuinely a Need for Speed game. This is the newest Need for Speed game as we speak. What is going on? If you look closely, you can tell that this is actually a Need for Speed Heat's map. It is definitely expanded. Like, you can see that these areas here were not in the base game of Need for Speed Heat. We're gonna talk more about the map later, but I'm just starstruck looking at this. Like, I cannot believe this is jetpacks. Yeah, sure. Like, this is what everyone wanted. This is what everyone wanted out of Need for Speed. Not more customization or better gameplay or more of an underground focus. No, jetpacks is what people wanted. Look, I don't know what the plan is with this game in particular. What you have to know is that this is basically owned or at least published by Tencent, who also make or basically publish a bunch of other mobile games and Chinese games in general. So it is hardly a surprise that they don't know what Need for Speed is and probably don't even care about what Need for Speed is. So they just kind of like throw everything at the wall, whatever seems interesting to them. And I guess jetpack racing was that thing. Now, what you're looking at here is not the whole game. I should very much preface this is not the entire game. This is just like one aspect of the game, one game mode you can participate in. And needless to say, I don't ever want to see this in a mainline Need for Speed title because what the hell? So here we have some more normal gameplay of the game, and you can actually walk around, it seems, in some areas. You can see on the map that there are these like borders here. I do believe that you cannot actually walk around the entire map. It kind of works exactly the same way as in The Crew 2, where you just have like these smaller hub areas where you can walk around. And I gotta say, this is actually cool. This is actually something I would love to see in like an action Need for Speed where you just have these hub areas. Because in Unbound, you could already kind of like customize and create a character. Same also in Need for Speed Heat. So honestly, I feel like this is something that I think could work quite well and would give more of a reason to customize your player character. Now, the only thing that really bothers me here is that the player character looks like, for some reason, like all of these like character models look the exact same way in all of these like Chinese mobile games. But it looks cool, especially how you can like kind of like seamlessly get into the car and just drive off from there. That's not something you can actually do in The Crew 2, which is like what I compared this earlier to. So this is I gotta be honest, this is super cool, that you could just kind of like get out and get into the car in these hub areas. Yeah, now that we actually like have a look, we can take a look at more normal gameplay. It does actually look quite decent, if I'm being honest. Now, you have to keep in mind this is still a mobile game, so, you know, the handling is going to be extremely simplified. And we're going to see this a lot as we go on here. But it looks fine. Like, you can now also tell that this is definitely Heat's map. It looks kind of different. It's in this, like, really, really uncanny valley where you can definitely clearly recognize this is Heat's map. But it's also kind of not. So apparently the name of this map is called Heat Bay. So Heat, the map in Need for Speed Heat was called Palm City. This one's called Heat Bay. Now, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a future iteration of this map, because the way it is described in the game is that this is like some kind of like cyberpunk future type map. So I'm not sure if this is supposed to be like a, you know, Need for Speed Heat, but in the future, so to say, or if this is like an alternative universe. Look, I don't know, and probably no one cares. You can also see that there's also a bunch of like influence from Need for Speed Unbound. So the menus there, the loading screens, loading transitions, clearly Need for Speed Unbound. And as we are also gonna see that there are these like cartoon effects, although they look less cartoonish here, I would say, than in Unbound. But you're gonna see that these graphical effects are still here, like if you're, for example, boosting, or how, for example, the light trails of the taillights, they're still here as well. So it's kind of like a weird mix of Need for Speed Unbound and Need for Speed Heat with some like original stuff thrown in. And I gotta be honest, it doesn't look that bad. It really looks... I feel like Need for Speed No Limits, which was kind of like the mobile game we had before and which was actually like released worldwide, I think this does look kind of better, if I'm being honest. Like Need for Speed No Limits was very restrictive in its gameplay in general. Like all of the races were extremely short, they were on closed tracks. And I think this being open world already, and also it feels like has like a more fun handling model in general. It obviously looks very, very... I'm not sure what the right word to use is here, but it obviously like it seems very, very detached from like any kind of like physics or gravity. But I think for like a mobile game, this works. It reminds me a lot of the Asphalt games, if I'm being honest. Which is a compliment, honestly. Like I think the Asphalt games, if anything, have pretty decent gameplay for the touchscreen controls in particular. Yeah, I also kind of like what they did with the map here. Like, you know, as much as I like Need for Speed Heat's map, it kind of felt like it only had like one atmosphere, so to say. Like it kind of had like one tone. It did have like variety in its different districts, but you can tell that they went way more creative here. So we have like kind of like an autumn fall type area with you know, all of these like fallen leaves on the ground, some fireworks in the background as we can see here. It does actually look like the map did see like somewhat of an upgrade, and it does feel a little bit more fresh. Like there's a bit more variety in the map overall. Yeah, I would actually like to play this. Now, undoubtedly, there's probably going to be some like mobile game shenanigans here. I have no doubt this is some kind of like gacha slop. But as far as like the base gameplay goes, doesn't look too bad. Now, I did talk about the map a little bit earlier, and here you can actually see an overhead view of the map. The interesting thing is with this game is that the map changes over time as it seems. So this is what the map looked like during the closed beta test 1. And this is what it looked like during the closed beta test 2. So you can see that the overall structure is pretty much the same still, but there are like a few changes here and there with some areas being added and, you know, changed around in some parts. And then once again, for comparison, this is Need for Speed Heat's map. And I think between Heat's map and the map in Need for Speed Mobile, I think the most obvious part is that in the like northwestern area, it basically turned into a desert. So if you look at it here, like in Heat, it was kind of like an industrial type area, definitely more of a dry biome, so to say. And in Need for Speed Mobile, or Need for Speed Assemble as it's actually called, it's like a full-on desert. Which I think, honestly, is kind of cool. This is actually like one thing that I did like about Need for Speed Payback's map. It's just how many visually distinct areas there were. Need for Speed Payback's map was completely dead for the most part. And there was like a bunch of nothing in a lot of places. But what I did like is that each area felt very, very distinct. And it's something that I think was a bit of a downgrade with Heat. So it's nice that at least with the mobile game, they seem to just kind of like mix things up a little bit more. And here we have a video that kind of like shows the differences between the maps. Now, obviously, the mobile game looks a lot worse, and I'm not sure what's going on with the recording. The previous recording of the game did look a lot better than this. So I'm not sure what's going on here. The game does look quite bad here on the right side. Try to ignore this for now and just try to focus on the differences in the map. And you can see that for the most part, the general structure of like the roads and the layouts and the buildings is definitely still the same. It's just that some of the vegetation and some of the buildings themselves have kind of been shifted around a bunch. What is definitely quite interesting is that they seem to have added some stunt areas. I'm not sure how to call these, but aside from the stadium being a little bit more basic, you can see that on the left side here on the mobile footage, there does seem to be kind of like a stunt park. Maybe they added more of these throughout the map. I'd imagine they probably did. Yeah, it's super weird. So with Need for Speed Edge, the map was still pretty much for the most part the same. Like it was basically just Rivals map ported over. Maybe there were some like minor differences. But for Need for Speed Mobile, they just completely, not completely, but changed things up in ways where it does feel kind of like it's definitely in that uncanny valley, so to say area. And yeah, you can see here that this is like a completely new area where you're driving through some kind of like just some kind of like construction site. They seem to be adding more and more of those areas as time goes on with consecutive updates, which by the way I think is actually kind of cool to, you know, enhance or update or change the map or add new things to the map. It's actually something I would like to see more in general with racing games. There were actually racing games that did this quite well. For example, Midnight Club LA added like a bunch of like its own district with the South Central expansion, or Burnout Paradise also added, I think Big Surf Island it was called. But even lately, Carrick Street added like basically like a pseudo Nordschleife to the map in the form of a DLC. And I think it is cool that they seem to be like gradually enhancing and you know, expanding what was initially called Palm City. So yeah, overall, I'm still not sure what to think about this game. I think part of me does think it does look quite fun, and I would like to play this at some point. At the moment, it's not really sure if we're ever gonna see this game in the Western market at all. It's such a fever dream, like especially with the jetpack stuff that I showed earlier. I'm not sure what to how to feel about it. Like I think as long as it's like a dedicated side mode that you can just kind of ignore, I guess I'm fine with it. As long as it doesn't like interfere too much with the actual car gameplay itself. It's such a weird game. It's such a fever dream of a game to basically just kind of like necro Need for Speed Heat, which is basically like as dead as it can be, aside from the online not being completely dead, at least not yet. So I'm really curious to see what they do with this game in the future, and I'm probably gonna keep an eye on it at least every couple months, check in what's going on, because there's just nothing like this out there. Like it's such a weird game on so many levels, and once again I would actually like to have this in the Western market as well. You can see the upgrade system here is like a classic mobile game thing with like different rarities, and no doubt the entire game is probably massively pay to win, or at the very least very grindy. You know what, like, it does look kind of fun. I'm gonna be honest, like for a mobile game, it does look kind of fun. I haven't played a mobile game since they even have bikes in this. Wow, okay. That already makes it better. Like that already like, okay, see, that's what I mean. Like it is pretty interesting. The last time I actually played a mobile racing game was Asphalt 8 during its glory days, like 2013, 2014-ish, basically before it became completely unplayable because of the monetization aspects. Would this be something that could get me to play a mobile game again? Maybe, I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see if there's any info on this as for like a international release. At the very least, it does seem like there is a decent player base in China, so it does seem to at least be more successful than Need for Speed Edge was back in the day. So maybe we're gonna see it, maybe we don't. I honestly don't know. Either way, I'm gonna keep an eye on it. If there are some crazy, wacky updates on this, I will maybe cover them on this channel. But yeah, just had to show this off for now, and it's a fever dream. But do let me know what you think of this. Maybe I am just crazy for thinking this is kind of interesting and maybe kind of cool. Let me know your opinion on this down in the comments below, and whether or not you would actually play this yourself if this released outside of China. Yeah, that's it for now. I just had to talk about this and show this and ask for some opinions on this because it's such a weird game, honestly. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for listening, and yeah, as always, take care, take it easy, and as always, peace. See you guys.